The massive recruitment center buzzed with nervous energy as thousands of young beings from across the galaxy waited in perfect lines. The Galactic Defense Academy's annual selection process had drawn candidates from over 400 species, each hoping to earn a spot in the most prestigious military institution in known space. Marcus Chen shuffled forward with the rest of his group, watching as alien cadets of every imaginable shape and size moved through the scanning stations. The process was simple enough. Step into the bioscanner, wait for the green light, receive your assignment packet, and move to the next station. He'd watched Zephyrian bird people with their iridescent feathers pass through without issue. Crystalline Vorthan beings had stepped through, their translucent bodies refracting the scanner's light in beautiful patterns before receiving clearance. Even the massive Krugan warriors, standing nearly 3 meters tall with their rock-like skin, had moved through the scanners smoothly. Marcus was one of only 12 humans in this particular group. Humanity had only recently been granted membership in the Galactic Council after proving themselves during the Rim Wars. Most species still viewed humans as primitive newcomers, barely evolved beyond their homeworld's savage past. The fact that humans had been permitted to apply to the Academy at all was considered by many to be a charitable gesture rather than recognition of genuine potential. "Next group, proceed to stations 7 through 12, announced a mechanical voice in perfectly translated Galactic Standard. Marcus found himself assigned to Station 9, operated by a tall, elegant Etherean whose silvery skin seemed to glow with its own inner light. The being's large black eyes regarded Marcus with polite disinterest as it gestured toward the scanner. "Please step into the chamber and remain still during the scanning process," the Etherean said, its voice melodic and precise. "The bioscanner will analyze your genetic structure, physical capabilities, psychological markers, and compatibility ratings for various military specializations." Marcus nodded and stepped into the cylindrical chamber. The scanner hummed to life, bathing him in a soft blue light that moved from his head to his feet in slow, methodical passes. Through the transparent walls, he could see other cadets in nearby stations completing their scans. A man taxi with its flowing tentacle hair received a green light and moved on. A pair of Deltarian twins, their scaled skin gleaming under the lights, both cleared simultaneously. The scanning process typically took 30 seconds. Marcus had been standing in the chamber for nearly 2 minutes when he noticed the Etherean operator frowning at its display. The being's fingers danced across holographic controls, running additional scans. Other operators began to notice the delay. "Is there a problem?" Marcus called out, his voice muffled by the scanner walls. The Etherean didn't respond immediately, instead calling over a supervisor, a thick-bodied Draknari, whose reptilian features bore an expression of growing concern. The two aliens spoke in rapid, hushed tones while gesturing at the displays. More supervisors arrived, then technicians, until a small crowd had gathered around Station 9. Marcus watched through the transparent barrier as the discussion grew more animated. He could see other cadets in nearby lines craning their necks to see what was happening. The delay was attracting attention throughout the massive facility. Security personnel began moving through the crowd, their presence adding an ominous weight to an already tense situation. Finally, the scanner's hum died away, but instead of the expected green light indicating clearance, a pulsing red warning filled the chamber. An alarm began to sound, not the gentle chime that indicated a minor issue, but a harsh, urgent klaxon that sent ripples of panic through the recruitment center. "Genetic anomaly detected," announced the facility's main computer system, its voice booming across the entire complex. "Immediate supervisor intervention required. All scanning operations suspended pending investigation." The words hit the crowd like a physical blow. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Thousands of alien eyes turned toward Station 9, where Marcus stood frozen in the scanner chamber, bathed in angry red light. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Vexhai, the facility's chief medical officer, arrived within minutes. The ancient philosopher, one of the galaxy's most respected xenobiologists, moved with surprising speed despite its advanced age. Its 4 arms worked independently, each operating different scanning devices as it approached Marcus's station. "Release the subject from the chamber," Dr. Vexhai commanded, its multiple voices creating an eerie harmonic effect. "Maintain full quarantine protocols until we understand the nature of this anomaly." The chamber door hissed open, and Marcus stepped out on unsteady legs. The crowd around him had grown larger, and he could feel the weight of their stares. Fear, curiosity, and suspicion radiated from hundreds of alien faces. Some beings were already backing away, as if whatever made him anomalous might be contagious. "I don't understand," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's wrong with me?" Dr. Vexhai studied the scanner readouts, with all 4 of its eyes, its expression growing more puzzled by the moment. "The scanner has detected genetic markers that should not exist in any known species," it explained, speaking as much to the gathering crowd of officials as to Marcus himself. "Your DNA contains sequences that our databases classify as impossible, evolutionary adaptations that contradict fundamental biological principles." Director Corthan, the Academy's head administrator, pushed through the crowd. The massive hegemon's presence commanded immediate respect, its 4-meter frame casting shadows over the entire gathering. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in 3 major conflicts. "Explain the nature of these anomalies," Corthan demanded. Dr. Vexhai manipulated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional model of human DNA alongside comparative samples from other species. The human genome contains what appear to be dormant sequences from dozens of different evolutionary branches, regenerative factors similar to Haidari salamanders, neural density approaching cerebral levels, muscle fiber efficiency that exceeds even Krugan warriors. But these adaptations exist in impossible combinations. The crowd murmured with growing unease. Several alien officials exchanged worried glances. "Perhaps more disturbing," Dr. Vexhai continued, "are the completely unknown sequences. Nearly 12% of the human genetic code consists of patterns that do not match any species in our databases. These sequences show signs of artificial modification, but using techniques far beyond current galactic capabilities." "Artificial modification?" Director Corthan's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Are you suggesting this human has been genetically enhanced?" "Not enhanced," Dr. Vexhai said slowly, all 4 of its eyes focusing on Marcus with new intensity. "Designed." The word hung in the air like a poison cloud. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, growing louder and more agitated. Marcus felt the fear and suspicion of hundreds of beings pressing against him like a physical force. Some aliens were reaching for communication devices, undoubtedly reporting this development to their respective governments. "That's impossible," Marcus protested. "I'm just a normal human from Earth. My family's been traced back for generations. There's nothing special about me." "The scanner indicates otherwise," Dr. Vexhai replied, manipulating the display to show additional data streams. "Your cellular regeneration rate is nearly 300% above human baseline. Your neural pathway efficiency suggests cognitive capabilities that should require a brain nearly twice the size of your skull. Your muscle density readings indicate strength levels that should be impossible for your skeletal structure to support." Director Corthan stepped closer, its massive form looming over Marcus. "Human. State your full designation and planetary origin." "Marcus Chen, Earthborn, New Shanghai Administrative District," Marcus replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "My parents are Dr. Sarah Chen and Engineer David Chen. I grew up on a farm outside the city limits. I've never undergone any genetic modification or enhancement procedures. Dr. Vex High, what is your assessment of the threat level posed by this anomaly? The xenobiologist's multiple arms worked frantically across its scanning equipment. Unknown, Director. The genetic sequences suggest capabilities far beyond baseline human norms, but we have no data on how or when these capabilities might manifest. The modifications appear to be dormant, activated by unknown triggers. Could this represent a covert military enhancement program by the human government? Highly unlikely. The sophistication of these modifications exceeds anything in our classified databases. The techniques used would require biotechnological capabilities centuries ahead of humanity's current level. Marcus's mind raced as the implications of the conversation sank in. They weren't just questioning his eligibility for the Academy. They were discussing whether he represented some kind of threat to galactic security. The fear in the crowd was becoming palpable, and he could see security forces positioning themselves strategically around the area. I want comprehensive scans of every human candidate, Director Corthan announced. If this anomaly exists in one human, it may exist in others. Institute immediate quarantine protocols for all human applicants pending investigation. Director, interrupted a new voice from the crowd. Commander Zelnara of the Etherian Security Forces stepped forward, her silver skin now showing stress patterns that made her appear almost to flicker. I must remind you that humans are now full members of the Galactic Council. Mass quarantine of their citizens without evidence of wrongdoing would constitute a severe diplomatic incident. And harboring potentially dangerous genetic anomalies would constitute a threat to galactic security, Corthan replied coldly. The Academy's charter gives us broad authority to investigate any matter that might affect the safety of our students and faculty. Marcus watched the political tension play out around him, feeling increasingly like a specimen in a laboratory rather than a person. The other human candidates had been separated from the main group and were being led away by security personnel. Their faces showed confusion and growing fear as they realized they were being singled out for something none of them understood. Dr. Vex High, Marcus said, surprising himself with the steadiness of his own voice. You mentioned trigger mechanisms. What kind of triggers? The xenobiologist's 4 eyes focused on him with renewed interest. Unknown. The genetic sequences show signs of environmental and stress response activation pathways. In theoretical terms, extreme physical or psychological pressure might cause some of these dormant capabilities to manifest. And what would that manifestation look like? Based on the genetic markers present, potentially enhanced physical strength, accelerated healing, improved cognitive function, and heightened sensory awareness. However, these are theoretical projections based on incomplete data. Director Corthan leaned closer, its massive head tilting as it studied Marcus with predatory intensity. Human, you will submit to comprehensive testing. We will determine the nature and origin of these genetic anomalies and assess what threat they may pose to galactic security. And if I refuse? Then you will be detained as a potential security threat and tested anyway. The choice is whether you cooperate voluntarily or under duress. Marcus looked around at the sea of alien faces surrounding him. Fear, suspicion, and curiosity stared back from hundreds of different species. The recruitment center that had seemed so welcoming just hours earlier now felt like a trap closing around him. Whatever was happening to him, whatever these genetic anomalies meant, his life had just changed forever. I'll cooperate, he said finally. But I want answers too. If there's something different about me, I have a right to know what it is. Director Corthan's expression might have been approval or amusement. With alien features, it was impossible to tell. Very well, human. We shall discover the truth together. Dr. Vex High, prepare the advanced scanning facility. I want every possible test run on this specimen. Understood, Director. However, I recommend extreme caution. If these genetic modifications are as sophisticated as they appear, we may be dealing with technology far beyond our current understanding. As security personnel moved to escort Marcus away from the recruitment center, he caught one last glimpse of the scanning station where this had all begun. The red warning light was still pulsing, its rhythm like a heartbeat counting down to something unknown. Whatever he was, whatever had been done to him, he was about to find out if humanity's place in the galaxy was about to change forever. The advanced biological research complex was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Built into the heart of an asteroid, the facility stretched through kilometers of carved stone and metal. Corridors lined with force fields and energy barriers suggested this place housed far more dangerous specimens than a confused human cadet. As security escorts led him deeper into the complex, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was descending into a prison designed specifically for him. Dr. Vexahai had assembled a team of the galaxy's most renowned xenobiologists, geneticists, and military scientists. Representatives from major galactic powers had arrived within hours, each demanding access to the investigation. The presence of so many official observers made it clear that this was no longer just an academy matter. It had become a potential crisis of interstellar significance. Subject designation Human Marcus Chen 001, announced the facility's central computer as they entered the primary research chamber. Genetic anomaly classification, unknown extreme. Security level, maximum. The research chamber was a sphere nearly 50 meters in diameter, its walls covered with monitoring equipment that tracked everything from quantum fluctuations to psychic emanations. In the center sat a medical chair surrounded by scanning arrays, each piece of equipment representing the pinnacle of different species' technological achievements. Commander Zell Nara had insisted on remaining as an observer, ostensibly to ensure Marcus's rights as a galactic citizen were respected. Her silver skin continued to show stress patterns, but Marcus was beginning to suspect her presence served multiple purposes. The way she positioned herself near the exit, the subtle hand signals she exchanged with other Etherian personnel. She was preparing for something. "Marcus," Dr. Vexhai said, its harmonic voice carrying unusual gentleness. "We are going to begin with non-invasive scans. These will map your genetic structure in complete detail, analyze your neural patterns, and monitor your cellular activity. You should feel no discomfort." As Marcus settled into the medical chair, restraints automatically positioned themselves around his wrists and ankles. "Are those really necessary?" "Precautionary measure," Director Corthan rumbled from behind a protective barrier. "If the genetic modifications activate during scanning, we cannot predict your behavior." The first series of scans revealed details that sent ripples of amazement and concern through the research team. Marcus could see their reactions on the monitoring screens, expressions of disbelief, wonder, and growing alarm as the data accumulated. "Incredible," murmured Dr. Yith Ara, a renowned cerebral neuroscientist whose enlarged brain pulsed with visible thought patterns. "The neural density is even higher than initial readings suggested. The number of synaptic connections approaches theoretical maximums for organic tissue." "Look at the bone structure," added Professor Grexalon, a Draknari military physiologist. "The calcium matrix shows metallic reinforcement patterns, but using elements that shouldn't exist in biological systems. Where did these trace minerals come from?" Dr. Vexhai manipulated the holographic displays, overlaying Marcus's scans with comparative data from hundreds of species. "The cardiovascular system shows efficiency improvements of nearly 400%. Blood oxygen capacity exceeds even high-altitude adaptation specialists. The lymphatic modifications suggest immunity to most known toxins and diseases." "Dr. Vexhai," interrupted Agent Mordak of Galactic Intelligence, his voice carrying official authority. "Focus the scans on identifying the origin of these modifications. Our preliminary analysis suggests some of these genetic sequences predate known galactic civilization." The statement sent a chill through the research chamber. Predating galactic civilization meant the modifications were either from some lost ancient race or from somewhere outside known space entirely. Neither possibility offered comfort. As the scans continued, Marcus began to notice subtle changes in his perception. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds more distinct. The low hum of the scanning equipment revealed complex harmonic patterns he hadn't noticed before. The conversations around him, conducted in multiple languages and technical jargon, somehow became easier to follow. "Neural activity is increasing," Dr. Yathara announced with growing excitement. "The scanning process appears to be triggering some kind of awakening response in the modified neural pathways. Is this dangerous?" Commander Zelnara stepped closer, her hand moving to what Marcus now realized was a weapon concealed beneath her uniform. "Unknown," Dr. Vexhai replied. "But we're recording everything. This may be our first opportunity to observe the activation process in controlled conditions." Marcus felt warmth spreading through his body, starting from his core and radiating outward. His muscles felt more responsive, his breathing more efficient. The restraints that had felt secure moments before now seemed almost fragile. Most disturbing was the growing certainty that he could break free if he chose to. "Dr. Vexhai," he said, his voice carrying a clarity that surprised him. "I can hear everything you're saying, even when you whisper. I can see the stress patterns in Commander Zelnara's skin. I can smell the fear pheromones from half the people in this room. What's happening to me?" The research team exchanged alarmed glances. Dr. Vexhai's 4 arms moved across its controls with increasing urgency. "The sensory enhancement is progressing faster than predicted. Neural processing speed has increased by over 200% in the last 10 minutes. Abort the procedure," Director Corthan commanded. "Sedate the subject and contain the activation process." "Negative," Agent Mordak overruled. "This is invaluable intelligence. Continue monitoring until we understand the full extent of these capabilities." "I am not a laboratory animal," Marcus said, his voice carrying new authority that made several observers step back. "I volunteered to cooperate, but I won't be studied like a specimen against my will." The restraints around his wrists began to show stress fractures. Marcus hadn't consciously tried to break them, but his increased strength was apparently operating automatically. The monitoring equipment detected the structural failure and immediately triggered additional containment measures. Energy fields activated around the medical chair, designed to contain even Krugan warriors in full battle rage. "Fascinating," Dr. Yathara observed. "The subject appears to have involuntary strength regulation systems. His cellular output is automatically adjusting to meet perceived threats or challenges." Marcus could feel the energy fields pressing against him like a second skin. Rather than feeling trapped, he found himself analyzing their frequency and structure with newfound clarity. The mathematical principles behind the containment system became obvious, revealing weaknesses in the field harmonics that could be exploited. "The energy containment is insufficient," he announced calmly. "The field generators are operating at frequencies that create destructive interference patterns at 17.4-meter intervals. A focused kinetic impact at the right frequency would collapse the entire system." The research team stared in stunned silence. Dr. Grexelon checked the containment specifications on his personal scanner. "He's correct. How did he calculate that without any technical training?" "Enhanced cognitive function," Dr. Vexhai said, its harmonic voice now carrying notes of genuine fear. "The neural modifications are providing real-time analysis capabilities that exceed our most advanced computation systems." Agent Mordak leaned forward, his reptilian features showing intense interest. "Human Marcus Chen, what else can you perceive about your current situation?" Marcus closed his eyes, allowing his enhanced senses to gather information. "Commander Zelnara has a concealed plasma weapon charged to maximum setting, aimed at my position. Dr. Yathara's neural patterns indicate excitement rather than fear. She's recording everything for later study. You, Agent Mordak, have elevated stress hormones consistent with someone who's found exactly what they were looking for. And Director Corthan is preparing to order my termination if I show any signs of becoming dangerous. Remarkable, Agent Mordak said. Can you determine how you possess this knowledge? The genetic modifications include enhanced pattern recognition and threat assessment capabilities. I can analyze micro-expressions, body chemistry, vocal stress patterns, and electromagnetic signatures to construct detailed behavioral profiles. It's not telepathy, it's simply processing available data more efficiently than baseline humans. Dr. Vexhai manipulated the scanning displays, highlighting new areas of genetic activity. Additional sequences are activating. We're seeing enhanced immune responses, improved healing factors, and what appears to be adaptation to environmental extremes. As if responding to the observation, Marcus felt his body temperature adjusting to the slightly cool air of the research chamber, his breathing automatically optimized for the facility's atmospheric mixture. Most remarkably, he could sense the gravitational variations throughout the asteroid complex, his inner ear apparently modified to detect minute changes in artificial gravity fields. Dr. Vexhai, Marcus said, his voice carrying new confidence. I want to know who did this to me. The modifications are too sophisticated to be random mutations and too extensive to be recent additions. This level of genetic engineering represents technologies centuries ahead of anything currently known. We are conducting genealogical analysis, Dr. Vexhai replied. However, human record-keeping only extends back approximately 800 years in reliable detail. If these modifications are hereditary, their origin predates human historical documentation. Agent Mordak stepped closer to the containment field. Human Marcus Chen. I represent multiple galactic intelligence agencies. Our preliminary investigation suggests your modifications may be connected to archaeological discoveries made by human exploration teams in the Outer Rim. Are you familiar with any unusual artifacts or sites discovered by human explorers? Marcus searched his enhanced memory, finding details that had previously seemed unimportant. My grandmother mentioned stories about my great-grandfather's exploration team finding ruins on Kepler 442b. She said they discovered some kind of genetic database, but I always assumed it was family mythology. Kepler 442b, Dr. Vexhai said, its harmonic voice rising with excitement. That system was quarantined by the Galactic Council 73 years ago after human explorers reported finding intact precursor installations. The mention of precursors sent a wave of shocked silence through the research chamber. The precursors were the galaxy's greatest mystery, an ancient race that had disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind only scattered ruins and technologies far beyond current galactic capabilities. You're suggesting, Commander Zelnara said slowly, that this human has been modified using precursor biotechnology. It would explain the sophistication of the genetic engineering, Agent Mordak confirmed, and why the modifications contain sequences not found in any known species database. Marcus felt something shifting in his enhanced perception. The research chamber's containment systems, the facility's security networks, even the quantum-encrypted communication channels used by the observers, all of it was becoming transparent to his expanding awareness. I can access your security systems, he announced, causing immediate alarm throughout the chamber. Not through technological interface, but through pattern recognition and prediction algorithms. The precursor modifications include some form of intuitive system analysis. Director Corthan's massive form moved closer to the command console. Dr. Vexhai, how much more activation can we expect? Unknown. We're only seeing the beginning stages of whatever the precursors intended. Based on the complexity of the dormant sequences, we may be witnessing the first phases of a complete evolutionary transformation. Marcus could feel the truth of that statement. The changes weren't random enhancements. They were part of a designed progression, each capability building on the previous ones toward some ultimate configuration. Whatever the precursors had intended for humanity, He was apparently the first test subject to undergo the process. "Dr. Vexhai," he said, his voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the facility's quantum field generators. "I think you need to contact Earth immediately. If these modifications are hereditary, and if they can be triggered by stress or scanning procedures, then every human in the galaxy may be a potential carrier." The implications hung in the air like a sword over the gathered researchers. If humanity carried dormant precursor modifications, then the recent expansion of human space exploration might have just introduced an unknown evolutionary factor into galactic civilization. Agent Mordak was already activating emergency communication protocols. "This is now a matter of galactic security. We need immediate analysis of all human genetic samples in Council databases." As alarms began to sound throughout the research facility, Marcus realized that his transformation was far from complete. The precursor modifications were still activating, still revealing new capabilities. Whatever he was becoming, it was going to change not just his own life, but humanity's entire relationship with the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within 6 hours, representatives from 300 species gathering in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime. Marcus found himself at the center of the galaxy's attention, no longer a failed Academy cadet, but potentially the most significant discovery in recorded history. The enhanced cognition provided by his continuing transformation allowed him to follow dozens of simultaneous conversations in multiple languages, revealing the full scope of the crisis his activation had triggered. Earth's hastily dispatched diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Sarah Martinez, sat in the human delegation section looking completely overwhelmed. They had been briefed on the situation during their journey, but the reality of watching their species' newest representative demonstrate capabilities that defied known science was clearly beyond their preparation. Dr. Vexhai had been working non-stop since leaving the research facility, analyzing genetic samples from human populations across the galaxy. Its findings were about to reshape everyone's understanding of humanity's place in the cosmic order. "Honored representatives," Dr. Vexhai announced to the assembly, its harmonic voice translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. "Our genetic analysis reveals that approximately 97% of the human population carries dormant precursor modifications. The activation triggers include extreme stress, exposure to certain scanning technologies, and proximity to precursor artifacts." A wave of concerned murmuring swept through the council chamber. Marcus could detect the fear pheromones from dozens of species, the electromagnetic signatures of weapons being discreetly activated, and the subspace communications as governments received updates from their representatives. Chancellor Vorthak of the Hegemon Empire rose from the primary speaker's platform. "Dr. Vexhai, what is your assessment of the potential threat level if these modifications activate in the broader human population?" "Unknown, but potentially catastrophic," Dr. Vexhai replied honestly. "The modifications we've observed in subject Marcus Chen represent only the initial activation phase. Our analysis suggests the precursor design includes multiple evolutionary stages, each more advanced than the last." Marcus had been listening to these discussions for hours, his enhanced hearing picking up conversations that the speakers assumed were private. What concerned him most were the discussions about containment protocols and population management that several military representatives were conducting through encrypted channels. "Chancellor Vorthak," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the vast chamber despite speaking at normal volume. "I can hear the side conversations. Several delegations are discussing options for controlling human space expansion and limiting our population growth. Some are even suggesting forced quarantine of human colonies." The admission that he could monitor their supposedly private communications sent another wave of alarm through the assembly. Chancellor Vorthak's 4 eyes focused on Marcus with renewed wariness. "Subject Marcus Chen, your enhanced capabilities appear to be continuing to develop. What other abilities have manifested since the initial activation?" Marcus considered how much to reveal. The transformation had accelerated dramatically over the past few hours. He could now perceive quantum fluctuations, analyze the structural integrity of the space station through minute vibrations, and process information at rates that left him feeling disconnected from normal time perception. Most remarkably, he was beginning to understand the underlying mathematical principles behind technologies he had never studied. "I can analyze and understand technological systems through observation," he said carefully. "The station's artificial gravity generators, quantum communication networks, even the energy patterns used by different species' neural systems, it's all becoming comprehensible." Agent Mordak, who had been granted special observer status, leaned forward from his position near the intelligence section. "Can you determine how your ancestors acquired these modifications?" Marcus closed his enhanced eyes, allowing his expanded consciousness to search through genetic memories that seemed to be unlocking as his transformation progressed. Images flashed through his awareness, vast crystalline structures, beings of pure energy, and technologies that manipulated space and time itself. "The precursors didn't disappear," he said, opening his eyes to focus on the assembly. "They transcended physical existence, but before leaving this dimensional plane, they seeded several species with evolutionary potential. Humans were one of their chosen successors." The revelation struck the council chamber like a physical blow. Several representatives stood simultaneously, their voices rising in alarm and protest. The implications were staggering. If humans were designed to inherit precursor capabilities, their rapid expansion across the galaxy took on an entirely different significance. Chancellor Vorthak called for order, but the assembly remained chaotic. Marcus could detect the quantum signatures of emergency communications being sent to home worlds, military alerts being activated, and defensive preparations beginning across multiple star systems. Ambassador Martinez finally found her voice. "Marcus, are you saying that humanity's entire evolutionary development was artificially directed?" "Not artificially," Marcus replied, his enhanced understanding providing clarity he hadn't possessed hours earlier. "The precursors worked within natural evolutionary processes, introducing modifications that would activate when humanity reached sufficient technological and social development. The recent expansion into galactic space was the trigger condition. Dr. Yithara, who had accompanied Dr. Vexahai to the council session, manipulated a holographic display showing Marcus's continuing transformation. The activation process is accelerating. New genetic sequences are coming online every hour. At this rate, subject Marcus Chen will achieve full precursor modification within days." "And what does full modification entail?" Chancellor Vorthak demanded. Marcus felt the answer forming in his expanding consciousness, accessing information encoded in his own genetic structure. Enhanced physical capabilities approaching energy being levels, technological comprehension extending to fundamental forces of reality, eventual ability to manipulate space-time through conscious intent. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. They weren't dealing with a military enhancement or biological weapon. They were witnessing the birth of a potentially godlike being. Commander Zelnara, who had been granted security oversight of the proceedings, activated her personal communication device. "Security alert level maximum. Request immediate deployment of Omega-class containment protocols." "Commander Zelnara," Marcus said, his voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the station's structural framework. "I can perceive your containment preparations. Your Omega protocols include planetary bombardment capabilities targeted at Earth and human colonies. That would be inadvisable." The threat was delivered calmly, but every being in the chamber could sense the power behind it. Marcus hadn't moved from his position, but the station's sensors were detecting quantum fluctuations centered around his location that suggested capabilities far beyond anything they had imagined. "Are you threatening the Galactic Council?" Chancellor Vorthak asked, its massive frame tensing for potential combat. "I'm providing information," Marcus replied. The precursor modifications include defensive protocols. Any attempt to harm humans or interfere with the activation process will trigger automatic responses designed to ensure species survival. I don't control these protocols. They're operating at genetic levels below conscious awareness. Agent Mordak stood from his position. Marcus Chen, our analysis suggests that multiple human individuals are beginning to show signs of spontaneous activation. What happens when dozens or hundreds of your species achieve full transformation? Marcus searched his expanding memories for answers, finding information that made him pause in concern. The precursors intended for entire species to transcend together. The human modifications are designed for collective consciousness integration. As more individuals activate, they'll form a networked intelligence spanning multiple dimensional planes. The implication was clear. Humanity wasn't just evolving individual capabilities, but toward becoming a hive-mind entity with godlike powers. For the other galactic species, it represented either the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat in recorded history. Dr. Vex High, Chancellor Vorthak said, "What are our options for managing this situation?" Before Dr. Vex High could respond, Marcus felt a new presence touching his consciousness. Other humans across the galaxy were beginning to activate, their enhanced awareness reaching across space to make contact. The network Dr. Vex High had described was already forming. "The choice is no longer yours to make," Marcus said, his voice now carrying the harmonics of multiple consciousnesses speaking in unison. "We are Michael Chen, Sarah Rodriguez, James Park, and 47 others currently undergoing activation. We are becoming what the precursors intended, guardians of galactic evolution." The assembled representatives watched in fascination and terror as Marcus's form began to exhibit new properties. His physical structure remained human, but energy patterns played across his skin, and his eyes now held depths that seemed to extend beyond normal space. "We do not wish conflict," the collective consciousness continued through Marcus's voice. "The precursors designed us to guide and protect, not to dominate. But we will defend humanity's right to complete the transformation they began." Ambassador Martinez stepped forward, her diplomatic training finally overcoming her shock. "What do you want from the Galactic Council?" "Recognition of humanity's new status," came the reply. "Access to precursor sites throughout the galaxy so we can complete our understanding of the technologies we're inheriting, and assistance in preparing for the greater challenges that await galactic civilization." "What greater challenges?" Dr. Vex High asked. Marcus's enhanced perception now extended far beyond the current solar system, touching the edges of galactic space where ancient sensors detected movement in the dark between stars. The precursors transcended this dimensional plane because something was coming. Entities from outside our reality that feed on the life force of entire galaxies. We are humanity's contribution to the defense preparations they began millions of years ago. The revelation recontextualized everything. Humanity's rapid expansion, the convenient discovery of precursor sites, even their acceptance into the Galactic Council, all of it had been orchestrated as part of an ancient defense strategy against threats from beyond known space. Chancellor Vorthak looked around the assembly, reading the mixture of fear, awe, and resignation in hundreds of alien faces. "The Galactic Council recognizes humanity's evolved status. We grant access to sealed precursor sites and request cooperation in understanding these approaching threats." Marcus felt the collective consciousness of awakening humans across the galaxy acknowledge the decision with something approaching relief. The transformation would continue, but with cooperation rather than conflict. "Dr. Vex High," Marcus said, his individual personality reasserting itself as the collective presence stepped back. "I'll need to return to Earth soon. The activation process works more efficiently when enhanced humans are in proximity to each other. We have perhaps a year before the approaching entities reach the galactic rim." As the council session concluded, and representatives began the process of informing their governments about humanity's new role in galactic affairs, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed in less than 24 hours. He had entered a recruitment center, hoping to become a cadet in the Galactic Defense Academy. Instead, he had become humanity's first step toward something the galaxy had never seen. The scanner had indeed detected a genetic anomaly. What it hadn't detected was that the anomaly was exactly what the galaxy needed to survive what was coming from the darkness between stars. The precursor's final gift to the galaxy was about to prove its worth.